I'm Michael Bungay-Stanier. This is Change Signal. This is the podcast where we cut through the blather and the BS and the noise to find the good stuff that works in change. If you are a transformational leader and you are seeking modern change mastery, you are absolutely in the right place. So one of my intellectual crushes is Todd Kashdan. He's written 3 wise, provocative, research-based books, all of which are on my shelves. One of them is called Curious, and obviously I love me some curiosity. One of them is The Upside of Your Dark Side, and I do like a little shadow psychology. But his most recent, and probably I think his most important, is called The Art of Insubordination. I mean, that is a brilliant title and such a call to action in these times that we live in. Todd's a professor, and he's also the founder of the Wellbeing Laboratory at George Mason University. Now, this conversation won't disappoint. We cover why cooperation is overrated, how to help invisible ideas get seen, and the paradox of the heart of being a principled rebel, that's Todd's powerful term, which, as a change agent, I just think that's what you are, and so you have to wrestle with this paradox. So this is going to be an insubordination-forward conversation. Todd, it's lovely to be chatting with you again.
Oh, this is great. Rarely do I enter into a podcast like laughing. This is great.
So what's the connection between well-being and insubordination?
It's really interesting start here, because one of the things about living with your values, take action against what you think the group is doing that is unhealthy, an act of principled insubordination, means that you are committing to, at least in the short term, a decrement or a hit to your well-being.
A hit?
Because you're going to get meaning, you're going to probably get purpose, but you're going to get decrements in terms of joy, love, ease, equanimity,
acceptance,
calmness.
Yeah.
Those take massive freaking hits to come here. And the question is the meaning and purpose benefits outweigh the ratio of negative to positive emotions? And most people who really believe on a cause, it's a nice thought experiment, and you should hope you end up with a yes. And I think we'll get into this in more detail, but I think it's one of the many reasons why people decide, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and not be the one to challenge the misogyny, the annoyance, like the evil that's out there, because I have a pretty good life.
Yeah. Let's just get into that there, because you're right. When you see bad things happening, there's one part of you that goes, the easier choice here is to step aside, keep moving, look away, pretend it's not happening. What's the difference between the people who do that and the people who actually step in?
So there's a lot of research on this, like what leads to healthy nonconformity versus conformity. So there are some personality traits that give you a tiny bit of an edge, but that's not really where the action is. So we know that extroverted people versus introverted people are more likely to be an upstander versus a bystander.
Right.
We know that people that are agreeable are less likely to do it unless they have vitality, a surge of energy in their personality system. We know that people that basically have an identification, which is like, I like creativity, I like taking risks. So while that could lead to delinquency on one side, it also is the person that takes a step forward to say, hey, can you leave that little girl alone? Like, I feel like you're yelling at her too much, and you're confronting their dad.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a little bit of a rebellious, I am willing to kind of break from trends, routines, and rules to be the person that does that. And, if you're the dad, you despise the principled rebel.
Yeah.
And if you're the crowd, you love the principled rebel.
Right.
And if you're the principled rebel, you've got all these mixed emotions, especially if you're also a dad of, do I really want a stranger telling me what to do with my own kid? And so it's a good example to start with, because it's just like, this is not one of those things that we can create a diagram with straight lines, go to everything positive, and lines move away from everything negative.
I mean, I think this is a really interesting, kind of an adjacent conversation for people who are leading change in organizations, because one of the things that I've come to just know is true in organizations is there feels like this relentless waves of change happening all the time. And at the same time, paradoxically, the status quo has this heavy gravity that is much harder to escape than you might realize.
Yeah.
So this idea of a change leader trying on the hat and the identity of a principled rebel sounds like it could be an interesting thing to explore. So can we go a little deeper into what it means to be a principled rebel?
Yeah. So essentially I stole a term that has pure negative connotations, particularly in the military and the government.
Is that principled or rebel?
The insubordination.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the idea of like, we're all in social hierarchies all the time, right?
Yeah.
You've published more books than me. You've sold more books than me. So in that social hierarchy, you're higher than me. In terms of someone that spends time putting unnecessary muscle onto their shoulders and biceps, I've got a little bit of an edge on you. So I'm like higher than you in that social hierarchy.
You do, yeah. So if you're listening to this on audio, not on YouTube, just to say, Todd is, as they say, swole, and me, not so much.
When we make a move to say that those people and the principles that they live by and the things that they're doing above me on the social hierarchy are problematic and I want to question them or maybe go a bit further and challenge them, that's an act of insubordination. And the principled part in front of it is that you're doing this because you're trying to improve the welfare of individuals, the group, or even society. Like you can get bigger and bigger in terms of the motivation behind the behavior.
Yeah. I'm curious about the principled bit because as soon as you say that quote, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter comes to mind, which is there's all sorts of ways that you can justify what you do as being good for the people that you're trying to lead or influence or whatever. Do you have any guidance on how you connect to the principles that matter most?
This is my favorite question because it's so important. So if we're going to be honest about this, we have to acknowledge is that there are plenty of cases that are in the gray area.
Right.
So let me just get that out of the way and we can dive into that. But one of the things that's important is when you remove the self from the equation, who's being hit with the costs disproportionately to the benefits that happen there? Now, if you can't answer that question, if you haven't thought about that question, then you get a little bit more towards an impulsive rebel rather than a principled or an unprincipled rebel.
Right.
So that's the first part, I think, for leaders and everyone to be thinking about is like, have you properly made an attempt to calibrate what the costs and benefits are and that what subgroups are going to be disproportionately influenced? Because there's always going to be trade-offs here. And I'll give you a Canadian example just because you're from Canada, which is when they had these truckers that decided that due to their like disdain for the government, they were basically going to have like this stop delivering materials like from across the border, from the US to Canada.
For international listeners, in early 2022, this was the so-called Freedom Convoy, a protest against the Canadian government's approach to minimizing COVID.
This is the very first thing that I thought about as someone who wrote this book, which is that have you thought about who's going to get sick and die in hospitals by you not refilling the blood banks, making sure the vaccines come in, making sure the medicines come in, making sure that the food comes in, because somebody, perhaps a very large proportion of society is going to be hurt because of your concern about the government. Do the benefits that you see outweigh the costs? And my guess is the vast number of truckers, and this is a really big point that I'm going to mention here, did this to show their identification with the group that they care for and want to be part of, more so than thought about, is this a principled stance for humans that are affected by me delivering goods to the community?
This is a tricky thing to navigate because, on the one hand, we're saying you got to get clear on who do I serve or for the sake of what. It's a way of creating some moral grounding for your insubordination, so it's not entirely self-centered. But that's tricky, of course, because as humans, we're pretty brilliant at post-rationalizing anything we want to do. I'm curious about the sustainability of insubordination. As you say, there's these various attributes of well-being that take a hit when you decide to push against the hierarchy, kind of going, look, I'm going to try and disrupt what's happening here because I don't agree with it for one reason or another. And I'm not really a gamer, but it's like if you're playing a game and you take a hit, you got your different energy levels are dropping down. And I just wonder, if you're playing the long game, you're like, I want to champion this act of change that's going. It's not going to happen in a day or a week or even a month. But every time I'm pushing against the status quo, I pay a price. I literally personally pay a price for that. How do you not burn out or collapse or give up or just go, I'm done with this. It's too hard. It's the price I'm paying is too high.
Yeah. One of the two big questions you should be asking yourself before you engage in a principled rebellion act is this: am I willing to accept the sacrifices that come with it?
Right.
And the beauty of just asking that question, and I know like you've trained me to be like a really big question, is it at least makes it automatic that you're thinking of, oh shoot, I've been thinking all benefits, no sacrifices. And the other one is, how will I feel about myself if I don't do this? So this is like this future time perspective.
Love that.
And I think one of the reasons that people don't become principled rebels is not just because it's easy to conform and you can conserve your energy. There's also this, I'm going to add one more variable here, is do I believe that I'm the smartest person in the room? If no, then you have to ask yourself, is there information that I have yet to acquire from other people to determine whether the move I want to make is valuable for them or problematic for them?
Right.
And so it forces you, before you jump into a room as a leader in any group situation and to say, you know what we should be doing? We should be doing this. That's when you think you're the smartest person in the room. If you think like, actually, are there other people that are smart in this room? You kind of more of a question like why is it that we decided that we're going to cut this whole department out of the organization here? Like, I've heard it said, but I don't feel like I have my hands around it. That kind of question is a great way before you decide, I'm going to challenge the hierarchy.
Now, if you want more of Todd, and I think you should get more of Todd Kashdan in your life, first step I would say is subscribe to Todd's Substack. It is terrific. It's opinionated, it's research-based, it's got elbows, it's got a point of view. It likes stirring things up a bit. I really love it. It's called Provoked, and you can find it on toddkashdan.substack.com. And Todd's name is TODDKASHDAN. So toddkashdan.substack.com, and follow him on LinkedIn because he posts thoughtful ideas and he engages in conversation with them. Todd, one of the guesses I'm making around what it takes to be a principled rebel and to be able to be insubordinate, lovely kind of twist on what it means to be a transformational leader, a change leader, is that you have a sense of agency. And one of the recurring questions I have on this podcast is, how do you increase other people's agency? Because you can't just say, hey, I'm giving you agency.
Right.
That's in its nature a non-agentic act. It's like a paradox. So there has to be this kind of invitation towards agency, but are they going to take it or not? I really wrestle with this. So what can you teach us about what it takes to increase a sense of agency in people around you?
So let me give a very simple one that's a win-win-win situation, which are always the best situations to handle here. So to start with, to make it very simple, you want to pair people up with socially attractive members of the group. Not physically attractive, socially attractive.
Oh, that's interesting.
So people that, when they speak, people put down their phones.
Right.
When they speak, like, it's actually people take notes. When it's lunchtime, they kind of want to be around them. Like, everyone listening here could pick out who are the three people that come to mind as the socially attractive, popular people, the cool people that happen there.
Dear change leader, so you need to be cool. And if you're like me, you know that's immediately not on the cards. So if not cool, you do need to build influence. And you're going to find other Change Signal episodes on just that. So seek those out.
When those people are trained, like, listen, we have a newcomer here, they're an intern, they have these amazing ideas, but I feel like no one's going to listen to them. Can I run them by you with him or her and see if you're into these ideas? Now you do that and get them on board. Can you do me a favor? and help me amplify this message. And I'm saying this to you, let them know. I'm saying this to you because people listen to you. People really like you.
Right.
And like, I'd like to leverage your awesomeness. So the win-win-win situation here is when a socially attractive person, now there's a very important element here in the scientific research, physically turns to face the person without the voice in the group. It could be by hand gesture. It could be by eye contact and say, listen, Jake over here, who's only been here for 6 months, we were talking and he told me this amazing idea of how we can improve things. Now, look, I just gave a curiosity lure. I left that open and just kind of, now all of a sudden, you put your phones down.
Right.
Your head perks up. You're like, what the hell is it? And then and then I reveal what the thing is. Now, here's what happens, and it's been studied, is that person's ideas gets more of a high quality hearing from the group.
Right.
So that's a win right there.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee it's going to be accepted, but it's going to get a hearing, which means like, great idea, but if you thought about this, and this.
So there's a kind of almost an aura effect of authority and status by that. You're kind of going, even by just looking at you, pointing at you, gesturing towards you, I'm passing some of my status over to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Costs nothing. Actually, more than that, the socially attractive person becomes more socially attractive.
Right.
Of like, oh my God, you're not just self-absorbed. You're not narcissistic. Choose your favorite therapy buzzword that happens there.
Right. So that sounds really powerful. Part of what I think about agency is, and you know this better than me, so correct me if I'm getting it wrong, is just a sense of power that somebody has, so that they're like, actually, I have some choice, I have some choices, I am able to make the choices. And if that choice doesn't work out, I'm able to make another choice to kind of like adjust from that. Is that something that you can help people step into, for want of a better metaphor? Or is this kind of level of agency partly kind of our wiring and partly because of the way we're brought up, and you hit your working years and it's kind of fixed?
Yeah. One of the important things that I love to tell organizations to do is be very clear about what the social norms are and what you would like to modify.
Right.
And I think one of the problems in organizations is we just allow this never described, never clarified ether,
Right.
like just this takeover meetings. So for example, like, in my university, and I've been there since 2004, so it's been over 2 decades, I have regularly pointed out, like, have people not noticed that there's 3 middle-aged white guys that eat up 80% of the airtime?
Yeah.
Like, and I've raised all sorts of ideas over the years. I've like, what if we had like the conch, or like where you pass.
Yeah, the talking stick. Yeah.
So this way, like these 3 guys have loud voices and they're domineering, not necessarily like physically strong, but like they're formidable. And also the way it works is you don't want to be on the bad side of these characters, and that's not good for idea generation and decision making.
Right.
And so one of the ways of preventing that, well, there's a number of ways, is you can decide that you get 3 times to talk in these meetings per month. So use these coins, this capital, wisely. That happens there. But that requires you to actually acknowledge up front of like, listen, appreciate that you guys are always talking, but that is actually interfering with all these other voices in the room. And so if you don't clarify what the culture feels like, not what you say it is, not what it is, but what it feels like to other people, then you're going to have some of the bad cultural elements just float in the air and continue like interfering with the diversity of possibilities.
That's interesting. I mean, what I'm hearing is from that story is in part what you're looking to do is not just how do I give agency, but how do I remove some of the things that are in the system that make it harder for people to assume agency. Some of those kind of structural cultural norms where they're like, okay, obviously this is the way things are done around here. I should just perpetuate that and continue to kind of behave and be compliant. Todd, if I hired you as a coach and I introduced you to a team that's about to lead change through a big organization. So we have a team of 5 or 6 people. We've got somebody who's in charge of it. It's like they've been tasked to like make this transformation happy. Not happy. Well, yeah, make it happy, but also make it happen is what I really mean to say. What would you be encouraging them to learn? And what would you be encouraging them to unlearn?
Damn, this is really good. It's hard to figure out those two silos, but I'll say I'm not sure which category this goes into. The first thing that comes to mind that's really important is developing group behaviors that minimize the connection between the individual and the idea. So here's one way of doing that. Try to create a mechanism where people can share ideas where it's not directly attached to individuals.
Okay.
It's really hard to figure out what the exact biases are in your organization. Is there a leaning towards listening more to men than to women? And we know this is very common in society.
Yeah.
Are there racial differences? Are there status differences in terms of the years of tenure that someone's been part of a group? Is there like a legacy bias where the originators are just treated everyone defers to them. When they walk in the room, everyone is waiting for their response at the end. And that becomes more weighted than everybody else that happens there.
Listening back on this, I am struck with the realization that Todd's insight here, it really depends on the organizational culture you find yourself working in. I mean, yes, be the change you want to see in the world and all that. But if you are working in a strictly hierarchical organization, this will be tricky to navigate.
How do you prevent all of those biases from happening? Have people share ideas independently.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there's no ties to who said what. So you evaluate the ideas on their own merit. And then only later, maybe, do you reveal, especially if it's not a predicted person.
Right.
Later you reveal, you know what? That was the intern that we hired. That's our third to last hire. How cool is that?
So I love this. So let me play back to you to make sure I'm understanding it right. There's a way that there are inherent biases in every organization, within every subgroup within every organization, that allow different types of people to be more or less influential. And if an idea is attached to a singular person, there's a way that it cannot be heard, it can be not given credibility, or perhaps it can be made open to ad hominem attacks where they're like attacking the person rather than the idea and conflating the two. Whereas if you're a team and you're like, this is what we stand for as a team, there's a kind of collective spirit behind the idea, which gives it a robustness and a way of mitigating or overcoming some of the biases that might be there if it's attached to an individual.
Yeah. The science is really clear. If you want to have a creative group, and I don't know what organization doesn't want to have a creative group, is you want these certain values to rise to the top. And one of them is criticality with compassion. You want to have independence and autonomy. And you want to basically have risk-taking over self-protection as fundamental principles in the group. And so there is worthwhile, besides what I said before, is that let's clarify. These values mean that you're going to get critiqued. It's not because that we don't love or like you. It's because there's only so many ideas we can absorb and act on because we only have so much finances, time, energy, and attention that happens there. And so we have to select some of them. And we want it to be the best of versus non-random of, let's give it to the people that we know we don't want to get on their bad side.
So you took us through those three pairs of words. Can you take us through them again slowly and just break them apart again?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like criticality with compassion. And what does that mean?
So the tendency is to lean towards cooperation because people feel good. When you're in a decision-making mindset, you don't really want to be worrying about people feeling good in the moment.
Yeah.
We want kindness, but not right now.
Right.
Like before and after, lots of hugs, lots of appreciation,
Got it.
lots of gratitude that happens there. So you got to lean towards criticality.
What it's reminding me of is a episode we had with Leanne Davey, who talks about the good fight. And she's like, you need to be picking fights.
Yes.
Not to just have a fight, but that's the criticality, that's the testing, that's the surfacing of the tensions. And you need to fight well. And really, if you sum that up, it'd be like fighting with compassion and respect and dignity.
Yeah.
So that the battle is over the robustness of the thinking rather than the nature of each other.
Yeah. I mean, you can use a sports metaphor. I mean, the best athletes in basketball or football, they usually have nemesis.
Yeah.
And they have such dignified relationships with those nemesis. Like, they make me better.
Yeah, so, the other person made me raise my game. It's Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. It's Lionel Messi versus Ronaldo. It's Virat Kohli versus Steve Smith, for both of you cricketing fans who listen in. So that was the first pairing, criticality with compassion.
Exactly.
The second one was individuality and autonomy.
Yeah, independence, individuality, autonomy, whatever word you like.
Okay.
And this is the idea of, we don't want cooperation in the beginning for the decision-making, because if you cooperate during decision-making too early in the process, what you get is the mean average of the group too quickly, and you've destroyed the cognitive diversity that's why you created and composed your team in the first place. And
Right.
Organizations make this mistake all the time.
I love this. I love this kind of like, stop cooperating.
Yeah. It's like, it's not counterintuitive just for its own sake. It's just like, it makes sense.
Yeah. Because cooperation is how quickly can we revert to the mean? And by reverting to the mean, you lose all of the benefit of diversity and wisdom and experience. And, the mean is never insubordination, I would guess.
Yeah. And I see this all the time when I consult with organizations, which is like, why would we want anyone to be anxious and frazzled in the group? Well, if you care about getting the best decision-making possible, that is a very typical emotion that should arise. It means you care.
Yeah.
It means you're sifting and exploring what options are available. You don't want to do anything that reduces the number of options that are possible to make that decision.
Got it. There was a third pairing, and I've already completely forgotten what it was. Do you remember what it was?
Criticality, independence. Damn it.
No, that's perfect. I should have written it down, but I was too engaged in the conversation. That will remain a mystery for our listeners. Actually, not a mystery, because future Michael, that's me, the editor, can review the script and remind past Michael, the guy doing the interview, and all of you, I guess, that the third of the pairs was risk-taking over self-protection. It's been a while, a few years since your book on insubordination has come out. It feels like the world has shifted a couple of times on its axis since that book came out. What do you know now about the Art of Insubordination that you didn't know when you published the book?
One of the things that I underestimated that I've been seeing lately is the speed to which people are willing to say things they don't believe just to showcase their group membership bona fides. And once you hear this, you'll see it everywhere. And the way that I describe it simply is the level of disingenuousness that can be hard to detect when you're in a group setting is very painful to observe.
Yeah.
And it's really like the antithesis of creating incredible groups.
Is that a bit of a down note on which to end? Maybe, people choosing self-protection over risk-taking. Or just perhaps it's a rallying call, because at the heart of being a principled rebel, of championing good trouble, good insubordination, is courage. So here I am appreciating your courage as a change leader, and also appreciating all you do to help spread the word about this podcast. I mean, I love a review, all podcast hosts do, but even more, I appreciate the act of sharing an episode with someone, a fellow transformational leader seeking modern change mastery like you, or perhaps even putting a post up on LinkedIn. Make sure you tag me. In any case, I will see you next week. Thanks for doing the work. I'm glad you're here.